and he told me to get out of the RV and that he was going to stab me in the neck. I'm also going to be as honest as I possibly can. I know that for me that's typically a red flag when someone says that, but I'm mentioning that because a big reason why I've never come out and said anything in the past about any of the other members, well, frankly, there's a lot of reasons that I don't think that's a valuable use of my time. But there were people that were hurt in this situation that are not me.
It's the kind of story that sounds like it came straight out of a rock and roll nightmare. Imagine being a frontman for a rising metal band, traveling across the country with your bandmates, only to find yourself left alone at a gas station in Vermont after one wild, chaotic night. That's exactly what happened to Kyle, the lead singer of death metal band Vitriol, when his entire band allegedly decided they'd had enough. Social media exploded when the guitarist, Keith Merrow, posted that the band had disbanded mid-tour, leaving fans stunned and scrambling to piece together what had gone so horribly wrong. From partying for over a day straight to escalating tensions inside the band, the events that night would spark rumors, accusations, and a clash of stories that no one could have predicted. And the question on everyone's mind is simple. How did a night of music, booze, and chaos end with one man stranded and a band seemingly broken forever? Vitriol wasn't exactly a stranger to chaos. Long before that fateful night in Vermont, the band had already weathered a series of lineup changes that left fans wondering if they could ever stick together.
I'm a pretty shameless guy. So I have no issue telling you that I like to indulge in responsible irresponsibility. So about once or twice a tour, I can't use the real word because I'll probably get censored somehow or flagged, but I like to indulge in nose beers. I'm sure it doesn't take much imagination to know what I'm talking about. So we play our show in New York, and I managed to get some nose beers, and we all indulged. After about a day, you know, of course, if anyone has participated, they know it's very easy to lose track of time. After enjoying it for a while, we realized we didn't have a lot of time to rest before the show. So basically, long story short, for about 30 hours, these men were heavily intoxicated.
Just months before, their drummer had walked away mid-tour, leaving gaps that had to be filled on the fly. The year prior, their bassist quit halfway through another North American leg, forcing the remaining members to scramble just to keep shows running. For fans watching from the sidelines, it often felt like the band was teetering on the edge, one bad night away from unraveling completely. And in hindsight, that's exactly what happened. While the band had always been known for their intense, high-energy performances and a chemistry that could ignite a room, behind the scenes, tensions were simmering. Arguments over creative direction, clashing personalities, and the pressures of touring had been quietly piling up. By the time that infamous night rolled around, it wasn't just a single argument or a one-off incident. It was the breaking point of a band that had been quietly fraying at the edges for years. The stage was set for a dramatic, unforgettable collapse, and nobody, including Kyle, could have seen just how far it would go. Once the headlines settled, Kyle finally stepped forward to tell his side of the story, and it was nothing like what fans had heard from the other members. In a lengthy 40-minute video, he opened up about the chaos, the fights, and the decisions that led to him being stranded at a gas station across the country.
At that point, Keith came into the bedroom. The curtain of in the back of the RV, there's a private bedroom where I was resting after that very long night. And he comes in and he's kind of standing over me. You know, I think what's going on is he's very intoxicated and he thought I was belittling him or, you know, trying to make him feel small or cowardly, which was not my intention. And he comes into the room, he's just kind of, you know, in his big tall way, looking down at me. And I was like, bro, now's not the time, dude. Can we, like, this is crazy. We need to get some sleep. Like, I'm not having this conversation right now. So he leaves, and he comes back again. And I said, Keith, you really got to get out of my space.
Kyle admitted that, yes, there had been outbursts and tension on his part, but he insisted the situation had spiraled far beyond what anyone expected. He spoke candidly about the strain of life on the road, the pressure to perform, and the delicate balance of trust within the band. From his perspective, the confrontation wasn't just about one argument. It was the result of accumulated stress, paranoia, and a night of partying that pushed everyone past their limits. Kyle's explanation painted a picture of a band trapped in a toxic loop, moments of camaraderie and creative brilliance, alternating with fights, mistrust, and ultimately a complete breakdown. By the end of his statement, it was clear that this wasn't a simple case of a difficult frontman. It was a night where everything that could go wrong did. According to Kyle, the trouble all began after a show in New York City, where the band decided to celebrate in a way that would only escalate tensions.
That's when I got very upset. And I screamed, and I said, how dare you? How dare you try to ruin this by goading me, by egging me on to do something that you've seen me do. It was heartbreaking. And part of me knew that it was the talking. So anyway, I called him I said, you how dare you get the out of here. I didn't threaten him physically. I didn't touch him. He leaves. I try to go back to sleep.
What he called nose beers quickly turned into a 30-hour marathon of partying, with little sleep and almost no pause for rest. Kyle admitted he was fully aware of the chaos, describing himself as someone who sometimes indulges in responsible irresponsibility. But even he couldn't predict how far things would spiral. As the hours wore on, exhaustion and intoxication started to cloud judgment, and what might have been fun quickly became volatile. The situation intensified when the band realized they were about to cross the Canadian border. Kyle claims some members became paranoid, worried about weed in the RV and the legal consequences of crossing with it.
And when I didn't get out of the RV, he pushed my girlfriend to the side, Maggie, who has come here, who has left her life to help support this band and them, who cooked for them, who woke them up, who never did anything but show them kindness, compassion, and nurturing.
Everyone was on edge, nerves fraying and tempers flaring. In that high-pressure, sleep-deprived environment, small disagreements exploded into full-blown confrontations. Kyle says he tried to calm the group down, but his voice of reason went unheard. What started as a night of celebration was fast turning into a dangerous mix of anger, suspicion, and raw emotions, and no one could see how badly it was about to go wrong.
I think this disastrous, this catastrophic, losing all three members at the same time is something that is very difficult to bounce back from. So I don't know for sure what's happening, but I have to assume that Vitriol is going to take a nice break for the foreseeable future until I figure out what the next move is.
Things reached a breaking point inside the RV where Kyle says the tension finally exploded. According to him, Keith, the guitarist, entered his small sleeping quarters multiple times, towering over him in a mix of anger and intoxication. Kyle admits that he lost his temper, shouting back and calling names, though he insists he never physically threatened anyone. The confrontation quickly became a clash of egos and emotions, fueled by exhaustion and the chemicals still coursing through their systems. Kyle described feeling cornered, frustrated, and misunderstood, while also recognizing that the chaos of the night had made everyone volatile. Words were exchanged, accusations flung, and what might have been a minor argument in another context became something explosive. From Kyle's point of view, it was a moment where logic failed, and instincts, both defensive and reactive, took over. By the time the dust settled, relationships were fractured, trust was gone, and the seeds of the next, even more shocking event had been planted. But the RV blowup was only the beginning. What happened next would push the band's drama to its absolute limit. The next morning, according to Kyle, the situation turned even darker. When he refused to leave the RV, tensions escalated into what he describes as a physical threat. Kyle claims that Keith, in a fit of rage, shouted at him in a way that left him fearing for his safety. His girlfriend, Maggie, who had been supporting the band tirelessly, cooking, helping with logistics, and even sacrificing her own life to help them, was pushed aside in the chaos. With their belongings, a dog, and a U-Haul full of gear, Kyle and Maggie were effectively abandoned, left with no transportation and no means to move their property. Kyle says the band drove off without giving them any money for gas or food, leaving them stranded in the middle of Vermont, helpless and alone. It was a moment that turned from a heated argument into a complete breakdown of trust, leaving him questioning everything about the people he had considered family on the road. And for fans watching from the outside, it was a shocking revelation. How does a professional band allow a situation to reach this extreme, leaving one of their own literally on the side of the road? The chaos didn't stop with being left on the side of the road. Kyle says it extended straight into finances and trust. He claims that because he had trusted Keith to handle the band's money, he and Maggie were left not just stranded, but effectively penniless. According to Kyle, when the band peeled off, Keith kept the funds for themselves, not even leaving a token amount for gas, food, or basic survival. Kyle describes it as being told to freeze and survive out there, though he phrased it more cautiously to avoid controversy. Beyond the financial betrayal, it was the collapse of trust that stung the most. Kyle had invested not just his talent but his faith in these people, believing that bandmates were friends and partners, yet in a single night, that bond was shattered. The result was a perfect storm, stranded, without resources, with thousands of dollars in gear, and their dog to care for, and facing the reality that the people he had toured with for years could abandon him so completely. It was a moment that highlighted how fragile relationships can be under pressure, and how quickly trust can turn to betrayal in the chaotic world of touring life. In the aftermath, it's hard to imagine Vitriol recovering from this disaster. Kyle admitted that losing 3 members at once is almost impossible to bounce back from, and given the history of turnover in the band, 15 members cycling through over the years, it's clear that stability was always fragile. He acknowledged his own reputation for volatile behavior, but also highlighted how difficult it would be to find new musicians willing to step into such a tense, unpredictable environment. Leading up to that night, Kyle says things were actually going well. The band had been talking about future plans, creative projects, and touring together. Spirits were high, and for a moment it seemed like everything was aligning perfectly. But in an instant, everything collapsed, leaving the band's future uncertain and its legacy marred by drama. For fans and observers, the story is a reminder of how quickly success can unravel when personal conflicts, pressure, and trust issues collide. Vitriol may have been a powerhouse of heavy, intense music, but even the best talent can't survive when the human side of the band falls apart. In the end, the story of Vitriol's frontman left at a Vermont gas station is more than just a wild tour anecdote. It's a glimpse into how quickly a band's world can unravel when trust, temper, and pressure collide. What started as a night of partying turned into betrayal, stranded musicians, and a likely permanent end for a lineup fans had once believed in. It's a stark reminder that even the heaviest riffs and the loudest shows can't protect against human conflict behind the scenes. Now, the question is left to the fans. Whose side do you believe? Was it a toxic frontman pushing everyone too far, or a band that took one step too far themselves? Either way, it's a story that will echo through the metal world for years to come, and one that no one who follows this band will ever forget. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Whose side do you think is right? We want to hear from you.